In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern where we have lots of severe cold on the way for the central and eastern states. I know I sound like a broken record as we've been talking about this for days and weeks, but the reason we've been talking about this for days and weeks is because it is, in fact, coming. So it's actually a good thing. If we've been talking about something consistently, that means that it's been being picked up by the models consistently and is coming. So it's actually a positive. We also are now looking at a more legitimate threat for snowfall for a lot of the Northeast, even the Mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, Upper Midwest areas such as those regions can be anticipating some significant snowfall in some of those spots. We're going to be diving into that as the thumbnail kind of shows. There is the threat for snowfall there, and every single day I'm becoming more confident in that, despite the time of year, which tends to be a little bit sketch, if you will, but this is becoming something that both models are showing, which we are going to dive in today. Definitely something to watch for. For the areas not really facing the threat of snowfall, which is a lot of us, there is storms coming in general. So rainfall, wind, there's a lot of impacts happening over the coming weeks. So let's just dive into things. And as of now, when we're looking at today during the afternoon and evening time frame on Tuesday, November 19th, I don't really see anything too crazy. We see some cooler air moving into the northwest here. You know, it's expanding into the plains, but we don't really see the east seeing too much action. We do have rainfall, which is exciting. Typically this wouldn't be, but based on the fall and late summer that we had, any rainfall is kind of exciting for most of these spots. So we do have some rainfall around. I would say the most major thing happening over the United States, I say that because there is a very massive storm offshore of the Northwest that we're going to be seeing move on shore. That's probably the biggest thing happening nearby the United States. But as far as something that is over top of North America, we do see this very strong low between North Dakota, Minnesota here in south central Canada. This is a 987 millibar monster storm here, and we do see heavy snowfall in the western and northern quadrants of this storm's precipitation. So heavy accumulating snowfall expanding down through Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota, areas where it is pretty typical to see snowfall this time of year, but this is a hefty one to say the least. We do see rainfall showers out to the east of this system, so this is a little bit more again, exciting for some of these areas. I know that these pockets in here have actually had quite a bit over the last few weeks, but we do see some rainfall, and, you know, be thankful for it if you do live up there, because there's areas east of you and especially southeast of you that have been struggling to see rainfall. So definitely be thankful for it. I took it for granted, that's for sure. Wednesday afternoon here, tomorrow from the time I'm making this video on November 20th, we do see some cooler air for the Northwest, but we do see more of this pouring into the Midwest and into the Ohio Valley as we get our first shot of cold that is moving in. We see that our low is still there near North Dakota, Minnesota. It's weakened by about 10 millibars, and we see the precipitation is kind of following suit, weakening. We do see snowfall around this low, but it's not quite as major or widespread as it once was. A lot of this energy is kind of transferred off to the southeast, where we have a decent little low here. Almost the same intensity here over Michigan, and we see mostly rainfall along this one, obviously. We do see this storm is starting to impact the northwest there. That's exactly what I was talking about. As we move towards Wednesday night into Thursday, this is when things get interesting. This is about 4 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday, November 21st, and we do see snowfall for areas of Pennsylvania, New York, Michigan, both peninsulas, that is, Wisconsin. The funny thing here, and again, if you've been keeping up to date with our videos, we've shown this, but the snowfall is to the south of the rain, and I talked about how strange that was, but we still, days later, have the model showing warm air move over top of this storm and cause rainfall to the north, snowfall to the south. So a highly unusual situation, one of those very interesting ones that we see in weather every once in a while, and just very unique to say the least. Let's take it towards the afternoon, though, and a lot of this just kind of continues. We're going to talk about the Northwest real quickly. We do have snowfall still for the Cascades, Northern Rockies, Sierra Nevada there. But in the east, we have a 994 here nearby northern Indiana, and we have a 990 near Long Island. So these lows are working in tandem to bring snowfall continuing for the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic here. And then this low that is offshore right near Long Island, we're seeing snowfall for the mountainous northeast. It's crazy to see that rainfall up there in Canada with snowfall in states like Kentucky, West Virginia, even Tennessee, and North Carolina. So crazy stuff. By Friday afternoon, we see on November 22nd, this all kind of consolidates into one low between New York and Pennsylvania. Typically, if you're nearby a low or south of it, you're seeing rainfall. This is during the high temperatures of Friday, but we continue to see this look of snowfall throughout the Appalachian Mountain Range and even expanding to areas in more medium elevations. I don't think we're getting snowfall at the coast anywhere by any means, so we're not seeing it at the very, like, almost ocean level areas. But for the medium to high elevation areas, we are seeing moderate snowfall in some of these spots like West Virginia, Ohio, a lot of Pennsylvania, New York, the Berkshires there, and Green Mountains of Vermont and Massachusetts, maybe even Connecticut, areas in northern Jersey. This is very interesting here. We see this monster storm approaching for the Northwest, so we see continued heavy snowfall for spots, rainfall, and others. That is an impactful and very hefty system up there that they have themselves. We see this low strengthens as it moves offshore. We continue to see some mountainous snowfall in the northeast here by Saturday, but it is basically moving out, and so is much of the cold here. Don't worry, there's a lot more of it on this model run to come. We're in a very favorable pattern for cold and snow, so we're going to talk about that in a second, but we do see snowfall across the Northwest, mostly I would say over the Northern Rockies and areas just to the east of them. In Montana and in Canada, we're seeing very heavy snowfall. Even the Sierra Nevada mountains, they're getting quite a bit of snowfall. Now, speaking about that very favorable pattern that we're moving into, I've been talking about this probably for about a month, but this winter continues to look like a neutral ENSO, or at least a lot closer to a neutral ENSO as opposed to a La Nina, which is huge. A neutral ENSO almost, in a way, kind of negates the El Nino impact, the El Nino or La Nina impact of a winter, and it lets those other smaller teleconnections, the ones that I talk about a lot, like the PNA or the AO or the PDO, it lets those types of smaller teleconnections kind of take the driver's seat, and that is what we see oftentimes in very active winters for both the West and the East, because those ones don't fluctuate on a yearly basis. They're much shorter term, with the exception of the PDO. That one typically is, sometimes even longer phased than the ENSO, the El Nino phase. But with the exception of that, the PNA, the AO, those are going to go back and forth between positive and negative throughout the winter, including, the AO. There's other ones as well. Those are all going to fluctuate. So in this type of a winter, it's kind of a blank template, and it's going to allow for pretty much everybody to see certain phases of favorability and unfavorability in certain times, which is a lot better news than I could give you for the past, I don't know, how long have I been doing YouTube? About 4 or 5 years, because almost every single winter in recent memory has been dominated by either a strong El Nino or an impactful La Nina that really just holds back the potential in the East. And if we can go a winter without that, I'm really feeling confident that we're going to have very favorable phases for cold and snow, maybe even the majority of the winter when you look at it back overall. So very good news on all regards. And I think we're already moving into that pattern. We've seen this warm phase, and now we're moving straight into a cold phase. And when we look at those two together, there's not really going to be a rhyme or reason in connection there. It's just kind of all based on the smaller teleconnections. So very good news for cold and snow lovers, and we're seeing that kind of pay off here. So I just wanted to do that little spiel there. I'll have more videos on that topic soon. But Sunday, here on November 24th, we see a very strong low over Oregon, continued snowfall for the Sierra Nevadas, some of the southern Cascades, and some of your northern and central Rockies there. A little bit of a flatter jet stream, but again, as we've been talking about for a few days, this flatter jet stream is a lot better than this jet stream, which is very warm in the east, very cold in the west. Look at this difference here. This is where your kind of 32-degree line is. We're talking like 1,000 miles right there, it seems like, almost, at least. And we're seeing it basically, it was in the Hudson Bay, and now in the next few days, we're looking at it around the Great Lakes, if not south of it. So that is a huge difference in location. So let me move us back to Sunday afternoon here. I'm going to take us into Monday, and what we're seeing is that a lot of this energy is now moving to the central states. A little bit of low pressure nearby Colorado, some snowfall for the northern plains and upper Midwest. Again, snowfall going to be a lot more common here. Neutral temperatures in the east, again, not nearly as warm as they have been. A bit cooler across the west here for the time being. But let's take it a step further. Let's take it towards Tuesday, and things start to really shape up. We see this low move to the area between the Great Lakes and the Hudson Bay here, somewhere around there, and has a dragging cold front. And this is typically what's been bringing the cold air into the east when we do see it this fall. We're going to continue to see that trend continue. Again, a lot of much needed rainfall in here, some snowfall for Canada, and not a lot happening out west by that time frame. When we look at next Wednesday afternoon, this is next Wednesday, my bad. We see this jet stream is moving further and further southward. We now see it around the midway point of the United States. So again, when we compare this to where it is or was a couple of days ago, we're now looking at an even further difference. So even when there's no clear trough in the east or the west, we're seeing a much colder pattern just a week from now. So huge progression towards the wintertime, and it's telling that we're in an Arctic phase here in the east. I want to say things worsen as we get towards Thursday the 28th. Another interesting thing is that we have near freezing, if not freezing temperatures, at least for the lows in these areas, if not some places very close to it in the highs. And we have a lot of precipitation just right underneath this. I mean, we have the potential for some of this to move up into this cold air and bring snowfall to some unusual places if we see this all come together. The ingredients are there right on this frame. Let's take a look at Friday. And it's the same thing, very cold air just to the north and a lot of pressure and storminess kind of just sliding to the south. That could all come together really, really quickly. Let's take a look at Saturday, and this is when things start to look a lot more intense for the east here. We see a dramatic jet stream, kind of gets a little wonky in here, but clearly a huge trough into the east here where we see this cold air is pouring. We see the lakes are going crazy. Tons of lake effect snowfall for almost all the lakes in here, many different states dealing with that. We have all this energy still to the south. Again, something could come together here and try to move up the coast easily with the amount of cold air we have here and the amount of wind drag that we have with this jet stream. When they're tight together like this, you see a lot of energy in a strong jet. For Sunday afternoon, we see almost that tries to come together for a coastal system. Take it with a grain of salt, but again, the ingredients are kind of there. Although you should still really be skeptical. It's pretty far out, but it's just really telling that we have an active precipitation pattern expected in the east for a lot of these areas and very cold air. And we're moving into December. You know, I haven't really seen an East Coast snowstorm in a long time, at least for the early December timeframe, but it's not that far-fetched. We're getting into that realistic territory to where it's basically winter, obviously. As we take a look at Monday, we see some snow showers around for the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, even the deep south, some areas on this model. So that kind of continues. As we move towards Tuesday, cold air continues in the east, and we see, again, almost something wanting to come together for the Thursday, December 5th timeframe. Look at this. Something wants to come together in there, and we see snow showers here within this cold, rainfall to the south. It's just a little bit too loosely organized, and it doesn't, but that easily could. And we see a continued warm in the west, cold in the east pattern for the end of this model run, just like this. As we take a look at the European model, I want to see where we get agreement. I want to just take a look. Here's Wednesday. Thursday, look at that major cold air and snowfall for the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic. So again, the GFS model has nailed what it's been calling for, as the European model is now completely on board. Almost looks identical. That snowfall lasts a while and eventually moves out, just like the GFS model. But look at it as we move into like the Thursday, the 28th timeframe. This is Thanksgiving. Friday, the 29th, the day after Black Friday. Saturday, the 30th, we have major cold air in the east. And look at this snowfall. Take this with a grain of salt. I don't think we'll see anything like this, but we see a deep south with this kind of just height of that trough right there. A low pressure system tries to develop. We see snowfall trending in for the very far south central states. And then we see a snowstorm for perhaps the Mid-Atlantic up through the East Coast. I definitely am suspect of this, especially the European model's performance, as I've noted, has been actually like inferior to the GFS model, which is not typically how it goes. That doesn't mean this is necessarily wrong. It is long out though, but this just goes to show the potential of the types of patterns that we're moving into in a hurry. Both models showing some crazy stuff like major cold for pretty much a majority of the model run, continuing into early December, so a long-term cold pattern, and also snow threats on multiple occasions. Huge stuff there. Now, as we take a look at the total precipitation on our GFS model, we see the West does pretty good. So does some of the South Central states, or better yet, the deep South kind of Gulf states, and then the Northeast and Great Lakes as well. much of which coming in the form of snowfall for these parts, so keep that in mind. Also the west, of course. Now if we take a look at the precipitation anomalies, we still have a kind of blob, an obvious blob here with some below average precipitation in these areas. Also the northwest, although they see a lot, they expect to see a whole lot, and this time of year their average is very high. We're not seeing quite that amount. I want to note again, I don't want to get into it too much, but the La Nina being not present and the models overdoing the La Nina, as well as pretty much everybody's winter forecast to this point have been overdoing the La Nina effect, in my opinion. We see typically in a La Nina a storm track straight through here that moves through the kind of Rocky Mountain range and then up through the Midwest and up into the Great Lakes. This is a typical storm track, and this is some of the driest areas in this pocket and this pocket. This is the time of year this stuff should get going. And we instead see actually a much more El Nino type storm track, where we see areas in the southwest seeing a lot of the precipitation, the southern Rockies, and some of the deeper south here. I'm not really going to count this because there's a lot of dry air in here, but as far as the west goes, it looks a lot more El Nino like than La Nina. And in a neutral ENSO winter, you can expect to see that fluctuate. So I think that's much more of what we're going to see. The northwest will get their fair share, but so will the southwest, and it's going to be very neutral in effect, in my opinion. That's how I kind of see things at this point. Total snowfall, Sierra Nevada actually does the best. Again, very El Nino-like, not La Nina. The Cascades do okay. The Rockies do okay. Again, very El Nino-like, not La Nina. We do see the northern plains, Midwest, Great Lakes getting inches to even a foot or two of snowfall in some very exclusive spots. Same story with a lot of the east here in Ohio Valley. We see a couple smaller snow systems move through here, and then even some snow systems that bring pretty substantial snowfall to the mountainous east. So again, very snowy, very wintry looking here, and it's becoming a lot more plausible in my opinion. Temperature pattern on the GFS model. We're warmer right now, as I mentioned. It was 73 today in Virginia. We see things cool down in a hurry. Here's Thursday the 21st, Friday the 22nd, Saturday the 23rd, Sunday the 24th. We start to warm up again, but look at this. Another major Arctic intrusion is on the way. It starts out with a little cooler temperatures in the east. It's actually pretty substantial, but nothing compared to what's about to move in right here, where in the greens for the beginning of December, we see 10 to 15 degrees below normal. Within these blues, we're seeing 15 to 25 degrees below normal, a huge departure from what's typical. And we actually just kind of continue to see major cold, even another Arctic blast in there. That might be the fourth one on this model run, straight through Thursday the 5th, which is the end of this model run. So all of a sudden, the entire upcoming pattern is pointing towards cold as far as model guidance goes. And again, a lot of your teleconnections, like the ENSO and other things, are kind of pointing in this direction as well. I still want you guys to take things with a grain of salt, especially beyond 7 days out. I'm far more confident in this upcoming Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday cooldown than any of the ones afterwards. But it is interesting to see that we have that one locked in here coming up soon, and then multiple after that being alluded to by these models that correctly called for this upcoming one in the long range. I think for cold and snow lovers, there is a lot to be excited about for the beginning portion of December as well. Not just late November, but early December, looking pretty promising. Anyway, we'll have more updates on all of this, of course, so be sure to subscribe. We upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.